and I'm livin'. Well, everything looking good. Okay. Adjust my camera a little bit. Hello! Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I guess I have one viewer, so I will start talking. Duh. Yeah, so I was thinking of making a. Actually, first of all, can you hear me all right? Rando viewer. Let me know in the chat if you can, because I'm doing this off my computer and don't know how well everything is. So just let me know in the chat if you can hear me all right. That was probably really loud. Anyone, can you hear me? Oh. Hello. What's up, man? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. I'm streaming from my computer, so I don't know how good the sound quality is. Testing, 5454. 135 billion. Can you hear me? I don't know if you can. Cool, you can hear me. Excellent. Is it too high? Is it too low? Is it good? Word, chillin'. Yeah, so I was thinking of basically doing a video kind of talking about like the Mortal Kombat movie and all this, and so I'll just stream instead. So because I guess it's not working and you can't really stream on like through the app or YouTube anymore, which is weird. I can't even post videos through my phone like I've done before. But yeah, so I guess I can start with the Mortal Kombat movie. I'll just talk about the bare bones because I'm not sure if anyone has or hasn't seen it. I don't want to spoil too much. So my thoughts. Oh, okay, so you don't care. Okay, cool. All right, so basically, movie starts out with Hanzo, who's Scorpion, in a village, and the first 7 minutes of the movie I think is up on YouTube already. So if you haven't seen it, I could probably link it here. Hold on. Give me un momento. So if you haven't seen if you want to watch it, you can, but in the chat I went ahead and linked it. I'm not sure if I get in trouble for that kind of stuff, but yeah, so like the first part of the movie is essentially Hanzo fighting Bihan. Like they're in his village. Hanzo's just chilling, cutting some grass, helping around the house, doing chores and stuff, and then he went to go get some water with some buckets, and basically while he's gone, Bihan, who's Sub-Zero, attacks his village and basically murders his family. And while he's essentially in the process, before he gets to the house to like murder his wife and kid, basically his wife hides their baby. So you get little hidden baby scene, and then you essentially cut to the fight where Hanzo comes up, who's Scorpion, and sees, oh shit, my family's frozen. Oh no. And then he sees, and he's like, oh, Bihan! Because the Japanese dude knows how to say Bihan and just happens to know exactly who he is. It's kind of funny. Hey, give me 1 second. I will be right back. Woo! Enjoy the background. Ah, I'm back. My creepy bedroom door be creeping. It's like, yo, my creepy bedroom door. Nah. Yeah, so basically they go ahead and have their fight, and then essentially Hanzo ends up getting beaten by Bihan because that's kind of the whole premise. And then the child who's hiding is essentially rescued by Raiden. Now, that first scene in the movie, in my opinion, is probably the first best part of the movie. And so after that, you cut to, I believe it was, I've seen this 3 times, I should know. So you cut to like a fighting cage arena place, and the character Cole Young, who's essentially supposed to be the audience, is fighting just random people for money. And he's like, oh, you know, I'm not the fighter I once was. Ooh, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? So he goes in and gets his fucking ass kicked, basically, pardon my French. And essentially he goes in, fights the dude, gets beat up. And meanwhile, in the background, they have Jax watching the fight. And he's all like entertained, this, that, the other. So after the fight's over, Jax comes up to him and he's like, oh, that was a good fight, man, you know. And he's like, oh, cool, I guess, thanks, I sucked, whatever. And then he's like, he asked him about this dragon mark that's on. 1 second. Sorry, I have food cooking, I know. It's a long time. Oh. Alright, I'm back. Ugh, sorry about that. I swear I had the creepiest bedroom door. It's like, oh, you're entering the room now, close. So yeah, so Jax comes up to him and he's like, oh, that's a cool looking mark on how'd you get it? And he's like, oh, can I see it? And the guy's like, here's my cool dragon mark. Ugh. And he's basically like, oh, that's really cool. How'd you get it? And then his Cole's, at the time we didn't know daughter, but basically daughter, was all like, oh, it's a birthmark. And Jax is like, oh, what's that mean? Oh, he was born with it. Well, at least that's kind of what the trailer said. It's just like the trailer version because it's funnier in context. But yeah, so basically Jax is like, oh, that's really cool. And so then you cut to a scene with Cole, his daughter, and then his wife there, and they're just all chatting, enjoying some ice cream and stuff at this random restaurant. And basically, they start like his daughter's outside eating, and she notices it starts snowing, and she's like, oh, that's weird. And like Cole and Nicole's wife are inside the restaurant, and she's like points to the snow because Cole looks out and notices, and he's like, that's weird. Why is it snowing in like May wherever they are, where it doesn't apparently ever snow, whatever state they're in, I guess. So basically, he goes. That's when they show a cut of they cut to Sub-Zero basically like walking towards the area, and he like raises the ice up with his hands, and he's all like, "Yeah, ice," and like basically chucks the ice at the ground, and it hits a lot of pedestrians, but somehow misses his daughter completely, even though basically the ice hits like right next to her, like literally, and so they were like, oh, freaking out and stuff. And then like Jax, so they run outside the restaurant to go get their daughter. And Jax pulls up in a car and is like, yo, dudes, get in the car. We gotta get out of here. Someone's after you. And then they get in the car and Cole's like, who the was that? And he's like, I didn't sound much like saying thanks for rescuing my ass. And basically describes to Cole essentially the dragon markers and how Sub-Zero and them are out to get people with the dragon markers and kill them, and that he needs to. So then they stop, and he goes and tells Cole to find Sonya Blade, who he then has to go find, who obviously. So he goes to find Sonya Blade. Jack sticks behind to go fight Sub-Zero because he's like, I'm just going to end this or try to. And yeah, so Sub-Zero ends up kicking his butt and then like snapping his arms off. And then you cut to Cole and his family get to like this cabin in the middle of like nowhere. And basically he tells his wife, oh, you and daughter chick are going to stay here. I'm going to go find Sonya. And they're like, oh no, whatever. And so he goes off to find Sonya and they stay there. And yeah, so he gets to Sonya's place, which is like this random trailer in the middle of like a junkyard almost looking area. And then he basically, Sonya kind of like jumps him and is all like, who the hell are you, pow-pow, motherfucker? And he's like, oh, I'm Cole. And he's like, she's like, show me it. And he's like, I just thought it was funny because in the context of that scene, she was like, show me it. And he's like, you know, like the way she said it is funny, but obviously because it's a movie and she meant the dragon marker, he's like, oh, I love the dragon marker, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so she basically describes to him like Mortal Kombat and all the different fights and stuff throughout the centuries. And yeah, so basically she has to help. She's trying to find the other fighters with the marker, her and Jax, so that they can keep them safe before the tournament starts. Because essentially what's going on in this movie is they're not trying to set up the tournament necessarily. They're more or less trying to defeat the champions before the tournament starts so that there's no one for them to fight, and then they just automatically win, which, according to this movie, isn't really technically against the rules because conflict between realms doesn't theoretically like impede on the rules of Mortal Kombat, which is its own separate rules apparently. So yeah, so while Sonya is basically describing to Cole the tournament, you hear in the background a person, and he's like, oh, who's that? And then they reveal Kano, who, in my opinion, carries the movie. He is the best part of the entire movie. This guy has, like, he's basically the comedic relief, but he's also actually the audience more than Cole Young's the audience, which I think is funny because it's like, I don't think they intended for that to happen, but I think they allowed him to essentially ad-lib most of his lines and everything. So Yeah, he was definitely, like, in my opinion, the second best part of the movie, besides obviously the fights between Scorpion and Sub Zero, which there were two of in total. But yeah, so they're talking, and then he's talking to the to Cole and Sonya, like, oh, I killed this man because you were too cowardly, Sonya, to kill him. That's how I got the mark, and you didn't. Ah, ha, ha, ha. And yeah, so as he's basically talking shit, Reptile pops in, and he's all like, "Yo, I'm Reptile," and yeah, so they fight Reptile. Kano ends up basically just straight up ripping his heart out, which you see in, I think, one of the first or second trailers for the movie. So I mean, that scene was already revealed, which I am like, oh, okay, great. So about a quarter of this movie has already been spawned by trailers, and I don't like that, because it's like when I go into a movie, I just want to, yeah, I want to see some of the stuff that I saw in trailers, sure, but I don't want essentially everything that was shown in the trailers to be the movie, which about, I want to say, 70% of this movie was basically in the trailers. So it was a large chunk. And yeah, so they fight Kano, and then they're like, oh, okay. Oh, or not Kano, sorry. They fight Reptile, so then they defeat him, and then they're just chilling, and Kano's in the trailer just drinking all her beers. He's all like, your beer tastes shit. Like shit. And by the way, there's no more left. And he's just sitting there drawing a picture of him essentially defeating Reptile. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, they just cast Kano perfectly, in my opinion. But yeah, so then they're talking about Raiden's Temple, which is where they go to train the champions. And Kano's like, oh, I know where that little place is. So then Sonya bribes him with money and is all like, oh, I'll pay you $2 million to go there. And he's like, $3 million. She's like, fine. $3 million. He's like, oh, okay. And bogus bullshit. So they go off to find Raiden's Temple, and like essentially they're like moderately lost somewhere, like in the middle of like the desert apparently now, because Kano has like a friend with a plane, so they just kind of fly there, and yeah, so they get to this desert, and they encounter Liu Kang, who I really didn't like Liu Kang in this movie, honestly. I think the actor was a good choice, in my opinion, but I think the way that the actor portrayed the character necessarily wasn't the best way to go about it, because he basically acted like, hey, I'm not in a Mortal Kombat movie. I'm in a serious kung fu action movie where I gotta be super serious all the time. So it's like it just kind of like broke character a little bit in a sense, but wasn't like in a good way. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't like Liu Kang at all, really. Like, the character was fine. He had some cool scenes, but he just was acted too serious for the role that he was basically playing. So yeah, he stumbles across them and then basically takes them to the temple where they meet Raiden, who is basically more of a dick than Christopher Lamb. Is it Lamb? I can't remember the actor's name. But the guy who played Raiden in the original Mortal Kombat movie, like, he's more of a dick than that guy. And basically he's like, oh, you all these champions, you all suck. And then he's like, oh, what? I'll give you a chance. So they basically cut to Liu Kang. I think, was that before or after? I think there was a scene. It was either before or after, but Liu Kang's kind of like just chilling, watching over the temple, and then Shang Tsung essentially sends, I want to say, yeah, sends Sub-Zero to go basically raid the temple, and that's when Kung Lao shows up. Now, Kung Lao, in my opinion, was like, the actor they chose for that role is perfect. Like, he actually acted like how Kung Lao would in like less serious roles, and actually knew what to do with his role. So he basically is all like, oh, get out of here, Sub-Zero, you bitch. And then Raiden puts up like a protective veil around the temple so none of the bad guys get in. So from there, they basically have to train the fighters, but they can't train Sonya because she doesn't have a mark. And if you don't have a mark, you're a piece of basically, and you can't do anything. So she kind of has to just chill and watch. And yeah, they basically tell him, oh, you have to discover your arcana. Your arcana? Arcana, yeah. And I was like, the hell's an arcana? So basically, the arcana, which they use for the movie, is essentially the character's powers that they have in the game. So, for example, Liu Kang's is obviously his fireballs. Kung Lao's, I guess, would be his super fancy hat tricks and teleportation he can use. And then who else did they have in there? Let's see. They had Kano basically with his laser eye, et cetera, et cetera. So they're basically trying to get them to discover their powers before they get invaded again, or basically before the turn starts. So, yeah, so they're doing that, and then Cole Young, who's supposed to be the audience, our main character, basically is all like, "Oh, I can't find my arcana. Oh, I'm still a baby," and so Raiden teleports his ass out there and like, "Get out of my temple, you're crap anyways." And then Kano gets his laser eye through like the best scene in the movie, which is essentially, I would like to dub it the dinner scene, where they essentially all the characters are just sitting at a table eating food and stuff. And he basically is mocking Kung Lao, and Kung Lao just is like, "Nah, screw you, dude," and just rips him a new one, just like cracking back at him like worse than Kano was cracking at him. And then Kano gets pissed off, and that's how he gets his laser eye, I guess. Which I thought was kind of a strange way for him to get it. But so he gets that. And then a little bit later, they have, who was it? Cabal come in, and he basically talks to Kano and is all like, "Oh, let down the barrier because you're not like these low-life trash peoples." So so Kano goes back, lets down the barrier, breaks it, and sides with the bad guys because money. And then they basically have the bad guys come in and kick everyone's butt, and then they have Shang Tsung come in, and he ends up sending, who was it? Kintara, I think Kintara, who's like this giant bat lady, to fight Kung Lao, and Kung Lao is all like, "Choppy, throw half blade into the ground, push you into it, now you're in half." And then they're about to fight, I don't remember what happened, but then Shang Tsung basically takes Kung Lao's soul, and then all the fighters are sent to this area called the Void by Raiden. So, but before that happens, one of the other fights was Cole Young versus Goro, and it was an all right fight. But then you find out Cole Young's arcana is essentially Black Panther's vibranium suit. So, in that fact, he essentially, anytime he takes a hit, the suit absorbs the energy, and then he can basically do an attack that's like amplified in damage. So he essentially has to do that to defeat Goro. So then he goes back because Raiden's like, "Oh shit, I need you back here at the temple." And like literally as he gets there, it's around when Kung Lao gets killed by Shang Tsung. And then Liu Kang's all like, Kung Lao. And then Cole's like, "No, bro, get in the portal with me. Let's get out of here." So they teleport out there, and then Cole's all like, "Hey, this movie hasn't been about a tournament yet, but let's make it like a tournament. We'll have 1v1 fights in different locations." So Raiden essentially now, because he couldn't interfere with any of this stuff before besides making the barrier, which I guess isn't interfering with what Shang Tsung's doing because it's in his temple. But yeah, so they go to get sent to different various locations because Raiden apparently has the power to teleport anyone anywhere. So he teleports Jax and one of the other villains, General Raiko, to essentially the pit stage from the original Mortal Kombat. And that fight kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. Like, it was a decent fight, but like, it was really short. And instead of basically knocking General Raiko into the pit, which would have been, in my opinion, the better way to finish that fight, just whapa straight into the pit, uppercut his ass, boom, spikes, you're dead. No, he's like, yo, I'm just gonna smash your head in. So that fight ends very abruptly and disappointingly, in my opinion. Then you cut to, I believe it was, who else was fighting? Cole Young. They had Cole Young fighting Mileena, but like, he was kind of trading blows back and forth with her and just not really winning. Then they had Kabal versus Liu Kang, and Kabal ends up losing because Liu Kang's basically like, I'll knock you into this pit of really shitty ball pit from like fucking Chuck E. Cheese's, and then uses his fatality with the dragon. He's all like, Baka dragon, you're dead. And then they have Kano fight Sonya and them fight in her trailer basically, but she uses like these under like the floorboard like traps and stuff to get him. And so they're doing that, and she ends up killing him with this garden gnome, basically stabs him right in the eye. So spoiler, how he gets metal eyes in the sequel if they make one. Yeah, so then one of the weirdest, dumbest things happens. So she basically somehow gets exactly to the location where Cole Young and Mileena are fighting. Maybe she knows where it was because he mentioned that spot before they all got teleported, but it's like how she got there didn't make any sense because I feel like it'd be somewhere way out of the way. But she just shows up and she's all like, ring blast, cha-cha, right through Mileena as she's about to attack Cole, and he's like, ooh, and she's like, powers. But it bothered me because Sonya just immediately getting her Arcana where everyone else had to like go through like trial and tribulation just to get theirs was kind of stupid in my opinion, because it's like it just took away from the fun of seeing how she might have actually gotten it. But yeah, so they fight them, defeat them, and then they get teleported. Then Cole basically is like, once their fight finishes, you just see Sub-Zero come through this portal, like holding this little necklace thing that he made for his daughter, and he's all like freezes it and just like slowly crushes it and walks back through the portal, and he's like, oh, get back here, come back here, that's my daughter's bracelet. She made one for me too. Woo! And yeah, so they go through the portal, and then he's basically back in the arena where you saw earlier. He was doing his cage fights and stuff, and Sub-Zero has his wife and daughter frozen up on the wall. Oh, thanks for tuning in, by the way. Talking about some Mortal Kombat 2021. If you haven't seen the movie, I'm kind of spoiling a little bit. Hey Dad, hey Wolf. But yeah, so they go back in there, and it shows basically he has to fight Sub-Zero now, and then he was handed this what's his like? Yeah, what'd you think of the movie, by the way? How'd you like it or not like it? So yeah, he has the what's that called? The little dagger thing. I forget what the exact word for it is. That Raiden gave him earlier that used to be Hanzo's, and so he's fighting Sub-Zero, just getting his ass beat, and I guess he like cuts his hand on the blade during the fight when he's about to lose, and then that summons Scorpion, which I was like, okay, I guess. So Scorpion comes in, basically they team up and take Sub-Zero down, and that was, like, in my opinion, the third best part of the movie. First being the first fight between Hanzo and Bihan, and the second being Kano, and then the third was that fight. Um, yeah, and then they basically cut to a scene. Then they are talking, like the heroes are talking, like, "Oh yeah, we did cool, good job, guys, woohoo!" And then Shang Tsung's all like, "Oh, yeah, no, you may have defeated my fighters this time, but next time, oh, be ready and stuff." And then basically he's all like, "Death isn't the end," so he like teleports Bihan's body, Goro's body to wherever he teleports them to, and then who was it? Raiden was like, "Oh, you're talking too much. Be quiet." And just teleports him out of there. But yeah, so like that's essentially the movie, and then they had to go find new champions. One of which is going to be apparently Johnny Cage. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. I don't believe so, but yeah, I agree. Like it was for what it was. Like as a movie, the script was god awful. Like the writing was terrible. Just it was all over the place. The scenes that were good were great, but the ones that weren't and the writing that wasn't were just terrible. And yeah, I definitely will say Kano stole the show, like hands down. Like he was the best part of that entire movie. And yeah, I mean, yeah, the effects were definitely good. A lot of the effects, especially like in the really good like main fights, were fantastic. But I mean, overall, if you want to watch it as a movie, you're gonna be disappointed because the script, the writing, everything was just terrible. Besides Kano and Kung Lao, I guess to an extent, but he wasn't in it long enough for it to really make a difference. Um, yeah, but if you want to watch it for a Mortal Kombat movie and you're expecting more just like the brutal aspects and like goriness of the games and everything, like, oh yeah, it was a great movie if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, so that was that movie. So then today I decided to watch, I think, what was it called? Those Who Wish to, I forget. It's like a new movie with Angelina Jolie. It's Those Who Wish Me Dead, I think it was called. So yeah, I watched about 20 minutes of it and cut it off because it had literally no plot, and I didn't know what the heck was happening, and I didn't want to burden myself with it. But I guess in the beginning, it kind of has like a scene of her in this giant like wildfire, and all her like friends and people around her are just getting burnt by it. And then I guess she sees her family or someone's family in the fire, and they get killed, I guess. But yeah, then it just kind of like fades out, and then it shows oh, who's the actor's name? Hold on. IMDb. Who? Yep. Who? Let's see. It has. Who was it? Was it this guy? Let me see. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, so it has the actor Aidan Gillen. Wait, hold on. Yeah, Aidan Gillen, who's been in his main movies, obviously Game of Thrones, which isn't really a movie. That's more of like a TV series. So like he starred in that as one of the characters, but I never watched that show, so I mean I don't really know too much about his character. And then it had who was this other actor? Had Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult. Yeah, then it has Nicholas Hoult, who's his basically partner, and I think, yeah, he was Beast in the more recent X-Men movies. But yeah, I guess they're going around killing who was it? Like basically people who they suspect were part of this uh accounting scam thing or discovery or something. And so they're out to go kill those people, like kill people who were part of it, like the Discovery. And it just it was like a 20-minute bore fest. Honestly, I couldn't watch it. I mean, which is sad because it's like it had really great actors and a good cast, but it's like if I'm watching a movie for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and I'm just done with it, that's never a good thing. At least with Mortal Kombat, I could sit there and watch it because it's like the scene, like the effects were fantastic. So at least it, you know, made me interested to a degree where I wasn't completely bored out of my mind and had no idea what was going on for like the first 20 minutes of the movie. So, but yeah, so that about wraps that up. So, um, hope you all enjoyed. I'll probably stream here sometime in the near future. Hope you all have a good night. Stay safe. See y'all later.